And it's exactly 18 minutes past 1 p.m. on the 4th day of June 2019. It's another Tuesday, and you're welcome to the Executive Lounge. And as always, my name is Inshira Ado, and I am super, super excited to be bringing this conversation with you. My guest in the studio is a man with, lots of decades. I mean, quite possibly easily 4 decades of experience in the technology space. And that means he has silver hair, which means he's not a millennial. But guess what? He works with lots of millennials, and he's built over the years a business. He created the F2B payment solution in 1998 for a market of more than 190 million people that lacked access to electronic payments in Brazil. You could say that he's the father of e-commerce. But we'll be learning more from my guest, Jacques Blinbanum, who clearly is the man to talk to about something I've been wondering much about, that I'm sure you do too, the future of payments. Here in Ghana, until a year ago, you needed to have a certain, you needed to be on the same network with people to send them money from your mobile phone. We started playing around with mobile money wallets about 10 years ago. Across the continent, it's evolving. There's even more disruption on the horizon. But what is the future of payment, and what does it mean to you and I? And Jack is the man who can tell us more about this. So, Mr. Blimbo, you are welcome to the Executive Lounge.
Inshira, thank you very much for having me here at the Executive Lounge at Joy FM, and the warm reception I've gotten in Ghana on every one of my trips. This is my 4th trip to Ghana, and I can't tell you how happy I am to be here and excited about the work which we're doing.
You know, 4th time lucky, yeah? I've been trying to get you in this seat for a while now, but it's good to catch up with you this time around.
You have. I remember we met on my first trip.
Yes.
About 2 years ago.
That's right. You know, and I'm very happy that we could have this conversation. And I know you're involved in quite a number of things. You're traveling not just in Ghana, but also across the sub-region. But how did you get started in all of this? I mean, you would have been, I'm not going to try and guess your age, but yeah, simple question. How did you get started?
Oh, well, I do go back a long way in this business. As I always say, I'm the oldest man in the room, and I can't get away from that. But, you know, I've been blessed with a lot of energy and love, a passion for technology. And I think it's the passion that keeps me going. It's not about the money. It's really about doing things to have an impact on people's lives. Started up in really 1997, in the days when the internet was just coming into being. What you may or may not know, that in 1997, the internet was almost 100% English language. There was no language on the internet other than English in any meaningful way. And so I set out with the idea that, in my mind, the second most important language to come to the internet was going to be Spanish. And so what happened was I set out to build a Spanish language portal. Being an American, a New Yorker, I felt that would reach out to the Hispanic U.S. community, as well as the entire Latin American community, Central America, Mexico, and South America, which is a huge market. And so I set out on this project. You know, life has a way of setting a course which is not the same course that you thought you were going to take. And instead of having this whole robust portal, we decided that the biggest need was in the field of electronic payments. The problem in those days was that as e-commerce was developing, people who were not banked, unbankable people, underserved people, had no access to e-commerce. And that was a tremendous disadvantage. And so what happens was we set out to build a platform. Again, you know, the forks in the road in life. The center of all technology in the Southern Hemisphere is Brazil. And in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. So what happened was my Spanish language project ended up being a Portuguese, Brazilian-based electronic payment system. So this is how life is, you know, and this is what makes life fun.
That's interesting stuff. So, I mean, it's quite interesting that you started off by identifying what one would call an opportunity, or what was a problem for you as an opportunity to build a portal to make an impact and connect more people who didn't speak English or read English very well. In the late 90s, I remember, it was all dial-up. Over here, you clicked on the dialer on your screen. I'll never forget the sound of the beep, 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 and then the handshake, and then you're connected to the internet. And every search engine you went on to required that you would use English to look for things. Alta Vista, Excite, Look Smart. Whoa, I've been around a while. Anyway, not as long as you have.
Great names. I remember them very fondly.
Yeah,
I don't think your audience does, not for most of them, but they were the standard at the time.
That's right.
They were the gold standard.
And today it's all just evolved into one, is it 6-letter word, Google. And it's quite interesting that for you forayed into this space because you wanted to fix a problem. But then it led to the building of a platform that served more than 190 million people. How did you see the potential to scale up and serve all these people? And what made the platform so unique and adaptable to the market's needs?
Mm-hmm. As I look back, two terms which we use very commonly today come to mind, and they were really not words that were even known. One was financial inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and really that was my motivation when I started this whole thing. I said, gee, there was so many hundreds of millions of people that were not served at all. Forget about underserved. It was totally excluded. And I wanted to open up opportunities to them. The other term which we use all the time is Fintech. Okay, Fintech is a new word. Okay, I was Fintech before there was Fintech.
That's right.
I was PayPal before it was PayPal. That's the way it was.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of things. A lot of things have evolved over the time. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing for me is to do something to make the world just a little bit better. And I love doing the business, but it's about making a difference.
I like the spirit. I think that when you go out of your way to try and make things better, in the end, you get rewarded for it. Like you said, it's not about the money, but I'm sure somewhere along the line you pick up a few notes to keep the bank balance healthy.
You do, but something. You made some good examples, and there's a very important lesson to be taken from what you just said. Mm-hmm. We remember the Alta Vistas and all these names in the past when there was dial-up, and they were gold standard. AOL dominated the world. AOL dominated email. Mm-hmm. Okay, and but the Lotus was the only spreadsheet that any serious person ever used.
True.
WordPerfect was a word processing program that every high-level law firm or everything used. Today, today's generation doesn't even know those names. Mm-hmm. Okay, why? They've fallen behind. So the lesson we learned in today's fast evolving technology is if you don't stay ahead of the curve, if you think that you have a good solution today and you're going to ride on it, you will be left and forgotten behind. So the challenge we have in the tech space is really every day is a new adventure, and yesterday's success is just a fond memory. Okay, and don't think it's going to take you into tomorrow, because it's not.
Yeah. I know a friend who likes, his statement says he likes this phrase that what got you here won't get you there. That what you did well yesterday only belongs there. You need to be creating new frontiers, new targets every day.
Yes.
But hearing your story, Jacques, is that you didn't start out. It didn't look like you started out with legacy in mind. You started out with humanity at the center of what you were doing. If I'm
honestly,
mistaken.
It is true. It's it sounds self-serving, but it's really true. I didn't think of it in that way at the time. It just was an important thing to do. I was very fortunate that I didn't have to worry about making the living at that time. I had been being a senior person. I had already made my mark in business. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was able to do this with a passion, and not with somebody, some VC guy nipping at my heels and saying, what are the numbers for this month, or what's the projection for the next quarter, and then having to fail or succeed, in a projected number.
Yeah. Fantastic stuff. If you just tuned in, I'm having a conversation with my guest. He's Jacques Blinbanum. He is the co-founder of Alex Bay. He created F2B, which was a payments platform across South America, served more than 195 million people in 1998. If you remember the internet then, we used to have, I think, about at the time, only 3 internet service providers in Ghana, and a handful of us could access the internet. This was before internet cafes, were all over the place. And you were already providing what is now frontier breaking for a lot of us, Only a year ago, we started talking about interoperability, where people can be on different networks and send money and do transactions across the different networks, financial transactions, I mean. Was that a barrier? What was this platform like? Because I'm sure in Brazil, they had multiple telephone networks on which these things would run. What was the platform like?
Well, the platform which we built, and it's really the platform which we are using here in Ghana, and which we're looking at really what Africa, because our motto is one Africa, one payment. So at Alex Pay, we're looking not just at Ghana, we're looking at Africa as a whole. Now, the lesson which we learned from Brazil, the most important lesson was that we were creating a platform that connected to anything to do with money or financial or account maintenance. So when I say all these connect points, the most obvious is the banks. The second most obvious is the mobile carriers, the ATM networks, the credit card processors. But then we started going into things like private label currencies. So private label, for example, could be airline points. It could be casino chips. It could be things like gift stores. Gift cards for stores. It could be things, anything to do which would involve an account.
Wow.
Was our specialty. So we built this robust platform, but a platform is like a computer. A computer can play music, and it can draw pictures, and it can do mathematical equations, solve mathematical equations. So it's what you tell it to do. So we have this phenomenal platform out of Brazil. Okay, I dare say, bragging, that we are better than the banking system in Brazil. We do, as far as security, fraud control, everything, we're better than the banks by far. And so we're bringing features of this platform to Africa, specifically Ghana. We're looking at Africa based in Ghana. Okay. And what we're doing is right now we're at the stage where we're connecting to as many partners as we can connect to. So we're connecting to the mobile money, to the telcos here in Ghana first, and then going to other countries as well. We're connecting to the banks, and that network as well. We will be connecting to the credit card operations, so we can incorporate that. And very important, we're also connecting to the remittance community. By remittances, I mean, remittances from the diaspora, Ghanaians, Africans, United States, in London, in Europe, wherever. That's an important connection as well. And so the more connections we can establish, the more solutions we can launch.
Wow. So how would you say, I mean, and I think it's a very loaded statement when you say that, you could dare say that you're far more robust and stronger than the banking system in Brazil.
On the security side.
On the security side. And that's a bold claim to make. But it also gives me a sense of the kind of impact that the idea of fixing a problem for humanity, the impact it made. Can you share or throw light on some other things that you think that intervention of creating F2B did have on the country and on the people?
Well, let me just take your question and just twist it a little bit,
Sure.
if I may. So everybody talks about fintechs. Okay? It's important to understand everybody has a different view of what a fintech really is. It's a broad term. Okay? So I'll tell you what my view of a fintech is. It's, of course, involved in financial transactions. Okay? But a fintech is something that builds upon existing structure, existing banking system, an existing telephone network, an existing credit card processing network, and has the ability to expand the reach of those institutions efficiently, okay, to a population which either they're not able to reach out to or very often don't want to reach out to. Okay, I'll give you a good example. In Brazil, really unbankable people are able to print out a piece of paper to pay their electric bill and walk into any bank. Okay, the reality is, but they would stand in line for an hour. The reality is, although the bank had to accept those payments, they didn't want those people cluttering up their branches. Okay? So the question is, how do we expand the services of the banking system to a large population without challenging and burdening their infrastructure? I.e., there goes the Fintech. The Fintech now comes out with a solution where you don't have to walk into the bank, you don't have to travel to the bank, you don't have to stand online for an hour, you know?
So you're providing, you're building on an existing system, providing ease of access to people on one side and preserving the infrastructure that already exists.
Exactly. And the important thing, at least for when I talk to people, whether they're in banking or in telcos, is that we're not here to compete with you. Okay, we're here to expand the reach of all those services to more people more efficiently.
Do you feel that the concept or the idea of telcos and fintechs, is misplaced? Would you feel that it's a misplaced notion that there is competition?
I think it's misplaced. Okay, when I started in Brazil in 1998, we really actually launched just at the very beginning of 2000. I was concerned. I said, gee, we're developing all these new solutions, and the banks is just going to copy us. Yeah. And you know what we learned? We learned that, and this is really one of the definitions of why fintechs are so important, is that we could launch a solution or make a change to our platform in a matter of days or a month or 2 months. Banks needed a year, 2 years, 3 years just to decide what they were going to do. So legacy structures really don't have the flexibility and the internal structure to make decisions quickly, implement quickly. Okay, our technology is the languages that we speak in fintech world. The internet languages and all the new developing and open sources and all this kind of stuff are things that the bank really cannot use because they're constrained by their regulations, by their legacy systems, by their corporate structure. Okay, a large bank can't make any decision on a new product without going through 50 people and 100 meetings. Okay, while a fintech like us, my partner Moses and I can sit down, bring in the staff. Do we want to do this? Talk to our team, and lo and behold, 2 weeks later, it's done.
Right. So you have the ability to disrupt yourself.
We do, and we challenge ourselves every day. Because we know if we don't challenge ourselves every day, we'll be lost. Because somebody else will just pass us by.
Wow. Just stay ahead of the curve all the time.
Everything. There's always somebody after you. There's always the next guy trying to beat you out.
Yeah. I can't help but, feel the passion with which you talk about it. And, like you rightly said, you're not the youngest in this business. You're proudly the oldest in this business. But you're happy to work with young people every day.
Yeah.
What do you find are the ingredients that would keep any business in the innovation space going? Apart from the simple mantra of innovate or die. I mean, what really is at the core of growing stronger every day?
Okay. The most businesses that don't succeed fail because of lack of capital. Okay? That's just, good ideas are a dime a dozen. There's so many good ideas out there. I go to trade shows. I meet with young people all the time. They have brilliant ideas, every single one of them. But you know what? If you don't have the capital, you have no chance of succeeding. The other thing is, unfortunately, some of these young people just don't have the experience on how to build a business. It's one thing to have a good idea. It's another thing to be able to build a technology, to implement this idea.
Yeah.
it's a whole different thing to build a business. You know, and there's an important lesson there. So if I was giving advice to a young person, okay, a young person who's a techie type of person, it's find yourself a business partner that understands what it means to build and operate a business. Okay, it's really vital to success.
Having that understanding.
Yeah. There's a certain maturity. I think one of the problems when I started out, you know, in the 90s, you know, and I was having these meetings, and, you know, I was in my late 40s, you know, and everybody was meeting was 23, you know, and never owned a tie. And I would attend all my meetings with a suit and tie on, you know. They were very smart, but they had no sense of what it meant to build and run a business, to pay payroll, to be responsible, you know. And also to understand the environment. You know, one idea will be great in one environment and will fail terribly in another. Okay, it's really part of the challenge. Every community, every part of the world is totally different. Okay, we have certain things which we hope to launch here very shortly in Ghana, which wouldn't work in the United States or in Brazil. Do you know in Brazil, mobile money doesn't exist? They won't accept it. In the United States, mobile money doesn't exist. It just hasn't caught on. Okay? But here in Africa, it's, as it is in Asia in many places, it's the lifeblood of the economy in a certain way. Okay? So it's not a question of just, you know, a teacher once said to me, he said, you know, he was teaching a course on how to make a business course and how to make money in real estate. And he says, you know, the secret to making money, he says, I'm a teacher. Why am I teaching you how to make money and I have no money and I'm not a rich guy and I'm teaching you guys how to make money? He said, you know, the secret in life, in business, is to be in the right place at the right time with guts. Wow. He said, many times I've been in the right place and even at the right time, but I didn't have the guts. Okay, the lesson there is that there has to be, all the factors have to come into play for that perfect storm in order to be successful. Okay, so just because I failed with something in the United States or in Brazil with one of our functions doesn't mean it's not critical and would be a huge success here. And I recognize that. Okay, that a failure is just a failure for that time in that space, and doesn't mean that tomorrow it's not a huge success. And we've seen that again and again.
That's true. That's true.
You know, there's just so many examples of things that didn't work, and then later somebody else picked it up and did it.
Several examples.
You know, not just in technology, in real estate, and go again and again. It's just about timing.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you alluded to a very important soft skill. You know, the maturity that it one requires to build and operate a business. You know, that the nuances that you need to understand, dealing with people, it's clearly spelling out the vision, constantly monitoring what work is being done and getting people to go along with you on that journey. Do you think that it's something that can be learned early in life, or you need to grow and be 45 before you'll be able to start a business?
You know something? I think that certain people have a knack for business. It's in their blood. And there's certain people that don't. Okay? Even in my own family, I have two children. One is more outgoing and aggressive, and the other one is more conservative. Okay, that means that one person will thrive in a corporate setting, and the other one thrives in an entrepreneurial setting. Okay, I've always said, and I've offended a lot of people, but I specialize in offending people. So I hope I'm not going to offend your audience. Okay, sometimes I think the biggest enemy of the entrepreneur is going to law school or going for an MBA. Okay, because what happens is it teaches you to think inside the box, and really all true innovation is outside the box. Okay, so it's, you know, if you want to learn business, go to an Arab marketplace. Go to somebody once said to one of the presidents, if you want to negotiate with Iran, start by buying a Persian rug in New York.
Wow.
You know, and then you'll start learning. Then you'll start to begin to understand, how to negotiate in different places.
So it's key to immerse yourself as opposed to jump into a framework that sets you on a track and confines you and your creativity.
Right. And that's
again,
it's a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, but instructive in what you also said, I think, is the fact that you must know what type of person you are.
Yes.
Because you don't want to go and jump into an entrepreneurial space when you're more a better fit to work in the corporate environment.
Exactly. That you're just hurting your, wanting to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing for you to do.
Right place,
okay?
Right fit.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Right. I'm enjoying myself. We've got how much time? Just 17 minutes to the top of the hour. And my guest is Jacques Blinbanum, and he is a fintech entrepreneur.
I guess.
The oldest in the business.
There you go. That's going to be my reputation.
It is, isn't it? And but super passionate about what you're doing. Very human-centered in the approach of work. Built F2B, which is the largest payment platform in Brazil. Served over more than 190 million people in 1998. Check that out. Yeah, that was what, 31 years ago.
21.
21?
No.
That's 21. 21 years. Okay, yeah. So 21 years ago, and still going and looking for new ways of doing similar things on the continent and right here in Ghana. Now, I'd like to talk to you more about, as an entrepreneur. You've kept young. You say it's largely because you spend a lot of time working with young people. But I also would like to know from, you work long hours, you're jet setting very often. How do you rest? How do you recharge and get your mojo back every time that you have to change, location?
Oh my goodness. It's not work. I truly say it's not work. I said to my wife just the other day, I would rather be in Ghana traveling with Moses, staying in a small hotel, as long as it's clean, in the north of Ghana, and seeing the people and walking through the marketplace than in a 5-star hotel on the beach.
Wow.
Honestly, this is what drives me, and none of it is work. It's tiring, but it's tiring the same way as if you're passionate about skiing or something else. You're exhausted at the end of the day, but you're exhilarated. Okay, that type of vacation exhilarates you, and my work exhilarates me. It sounds trite, but it's really true. It's what keeps me going. It really does.
Wow.
And I would recommend it to anybody who's like-minded.
Yeah, I mean, I'm liking the idea of that. So you do what you enjoy doing, that excites you, and by so doing, it wouldn't be work.
It's not work. Monday morning is a great day.
That's interesting. I know people who hate Monday morning.
Yeah, I know a lot of them.
Yeah, and they like days like tomorrow because it's a holiday.
Right.
Jacques. So you've seen the evolution of payment. What do you think the future holds for Ghana, in terms of the trends that we've seen across maybe in the last 10, 12 years?
Yeah. It's an important question, and I'm glad we got to it because it's something that's on my mind, okay? You ask about the trends, so I think that translates in my mind to the question is, what is the environment for growth of fintech business, okay? Now, if we have an environment that is welcoming and embracing, then we will thrive. And when fintech grows, the common people get the biggest benefit. Because fintech is what reduces prices. Fintech is what makes services and products accessible to people that wouldn't have access to them otherwise. Fintech is what keeps people from wasting the day going, on a ride to stand in line to do something, which by all means should be done in about 25 seconds on their phone. Okay, so it really impacts on people's quality of life. Now, if you have an environment, whether it's the established institutions, whether it's government, which is embracing a fintech, okay, then you'll have a thriving fintech market economy, okay. If on the other hand you have institutions that see fintechs as a challenge or a threat to them, or government that says I need to put controls, I need to protect whatever interests there might be. And you create an environment which is really not warm and embracing of fintechs, then it becomes difficult. And then it becomes really a small group of people that have agendas and interests that will take over the fintech space to their interest, to their personal advantage.
You know, there could be a school of thought that says, okay, well, Jacques will say what he just said because you're in the industry, and of course you'll talk up the upsides of the economy, of that sector of the economy. However, there are challenges that they may foresee. For example, I don't know if you've been following what's happened in our financial sector in the last couple of years. Is there real, clear and present danger in the fintech space, especially where transactions are being done? Blockchain was deemed to be a very new, awesome, almost foolproof in terms of security. But we've heard of things where people have lost, their wallets and things like that. Shouldn't government be in the position to restrict what they are not clear about, so they can buy themselves time to ensure that they're providing that protection that every citizen within the borders should get?
And that, what government has to play a role. There has to be protection for people. However, the fine line, the balancing act, is to provide protection while not stymieing progress. It's very difficult to do that, okay? And the tools are different. But I think the first thing to do is to understand that going into the process, there are competing agendas, and that if you decide that we want to create controls and regulations that don't really stymie fintech totally, but really control the people who get into fintech. Okay, so what are some of the factors that I would think are important as far as considering whether somebody is reputable or should be embraced or whatever? It's experience. Okay, what is the biggest thing if you hire somebody to work for you? If you choose an attorney, a professional, or an employee, whatever, what do you look at? You look at the person's history and experience and track record. It's not a question of dollars and cents and if you deposit this much money or that much money. It's who are the people involved, what's their personal history, have they behaved well, look at their network of relationships. And that's how we as individuals choose who our friends are, who our workers are, and who we relate to. Who do you trust to take care of your children when you're going away? It's not by how much money they have in the bank. It's by who they are. The character, the integrity of the people who are really behind is much more important than the amount of money that they may bring to the table. Having said that, as I said before, being undercapitalized is a disaster scenario. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have a company trying to start a business which obviously doesn't have the capital behind it. So in my view, for example, a capital structure would be important to look at, in assessing the quality of an entity. The people who are involved would be an important factor to help assess the quality of the entity, okay? And build from there. But the first decision is, do I embrace or not? I know, for example, Nigeria, okay? In Nigeria, there's no real mobile money. There are operators that established a mobile money system parallel to the telcos, but the telcos did not establish, as I understand it. I'm not a specialist. Right. Mobile money, okay? The banks, there's always this competition between the banking system and the mobile money system. Everybody wants to own that piece of the pie. That's right. The reality is that they all have to work together with the fintechs as well as a three-pronged type of solution.
Payment is important in everything we do. I mean, you go into business, of course, to fix problems, but ultimately to get paid while doing that.
Right.
And so payment will be integral. And as the continent looks to do more intra-Africa trade, you're going to need to see some of these things happening. Do you feel that the fintech space could suffer the so-called dot-com bubble of the past, or this endless opportunity?
You talk about the dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
Okay. When I think about that term, okay, that bubble was only a financial investment bubble. The actual technology survived.
And kept growing.
And kept growing. Never stopped. Never stopped. The stock market crashed, possibly. For the shares for those companies crashed, but they were overvalued, and this was really Wall Street playing games. It had nothing to do with fintech, with technology.
Okay.
And we have so many ways to reach out to people today. Even at Alex Pay, we have a three-pronged approach. Okay, one, we reach out to people through their smartphones. Okay. And we're able to, smartphone is a walking computer,
That's
okay?
right.
But that's a great solution for the individual, for the person, okay? But then we have to reach out to the business community. So how do you reach out to the business community? It's with an online portal, okay, where sophisticated, large transactions, bulk transactions can really serve business, okay? But the third thing you have to understand is we have other technology which reaches out to the underserved, which is USSD. Okay, USSD.
What
if you
we call the YAM or
the YAM, exactly. I learned about those YAM phones. The funny thing is, if you go to Brazil, and I talk to my developers in the beginning, they don't know what USSD is. If you go to the United States, they never heard of USSD. I'm talking about techies. I'm not talking about the man in the street.
Because it's the entry level is pretty much a smartphone. So they're writing codes for different interfaces.
Yes, but we never had USSD in the United States. We never had USSD in Brazil. Amazing, I know. And here you live on USSD. You lived on USSD for such a long time. So when I came to Ghana, okay, USSD was a whole new thing for me.
Wow. But how is that a potential? So let me try and frame this properly, because it's a little confusing to me right now. That technology that otherwise would be called obsolete or old is what's creating a leapfrog effect for financial inclusion.
It is.
How is that possible?
It's just the magic. It's part of the formula, the magic. I always say, Inchira,
Yeah.
do you see the magic?
Yeah.
If you see the magic, then you're an entrepreneur. Okay, the magic is there. So what happens? So now we come to a place, there's USSD, and you know what? That's the magic bullet to reach the underserved.
So it's kind of going back to go forward.
So that's what Moses and I say all the time, okay? We build cutting-edge technology, and then we back-engineer it so that it works for the common man,
Wow.
okay? And it's really interesting. It's a great challenge.
Now I see why you're looking young, because that's exciting
Okay.
stuff to do. Like you think into the future, and then you go back,
Yeah.
into the past, and then try and make it work for those who have not caught up with the times.
Don't we teach our children the same way?
Yeah.
Don't we have the very sophisticated lessons, and then we write children's books so that we can communicate that to our children? Okay, we do it every day in our lives.
So there's no real serious magic to it, except that the magic is in the simplicity.
You gotta love it,
Yeah, fantastic.
and then you see it. You have to see it.
Yeah. I want to have this conversation over and over and over again, but that's all time would allow us.
Oh, come on! Let's get some more time.
See this guy here? He's here to read the news. And then after that, you have my colleague Sammy Forsin coming on to do Drive. And they're going to be playing lots of great music. But I'm sure that our audience have picked up some really great nuggets. And for me personally, I always wrap the conversation up with 5 insights from our conversation. And for me, is that passion is not enough. Because you can be passionate about the wrong things. If you have passion to impact on humanity, you have a chance of succeeding with an idea. Number 2 is that you must think pioneering. Go off the beaten path and create something for everyone else. The third thing is that you must disrupt yourself or the environment in which you are, because if you don't, you wouldn't innovate quick enough, and you become what's the hotspot? Look smart or excite of the search engine world, which today is nowhere to be found. And then the other thing is that you should consistently learn, and learning is more importantly about who you are, because there's something about you that makes you a right fit for one thing or the other. So if you know yourself better, then your chances of surviving and being useful in your chosen field of passion and expertise would be more beneficial to everyone. And the final thing for me is that if the exhilaration is more than the exhaustion, or then you're in the right place.
You're in the right place. And sure, thank you so much for having me here.
I've had such a
been
great time.
great. Thank you so much for having me here.
Right. Jack, thanks so much. I'm treating you to a song by Bisakede and Sarkodie, and they call this one Pocket. We're talking money, so why not play something called Pocket? Great time. Okay, Moses endorses, so hopefully you like it. And until the next edition of the Executive Lounge, I'm out. And for you, go forward, make rain, shalom. Stay tuned for the rest of our programming.
This is amazing. What else? Another